I told you never to come here again, Hijioke's hand. The very son she had raised through tears, and hunger struck her face with a slap as cold as steel. The birthday cake shattered on the marble floor. Silence fell over the glittering hall. The mother stood there, eyes wet, lips trembling, surrounded by murmurs from people who had no idea that she was the root of all the glory surrounding them. There are wounds that draw no blood, yet one slap can bury a mother's spirit for life. And that night, the rain began to fall over Lagos, as if the heavens themselves wept for a love betrayed. This is not just a story, it's a wake-up call for all of us. When you chase the lights of success, don't forget the hand that lit your first lamp. Because ingratitude can cost you everything, even your soul. Watch till the end to see what happened to the son who slapped his mother at his own son's birthday party, and the price he paid when it was too late to say, "Without, I'm sorry." Comment where you're watching from: Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, USA. Have you ever seen someone forget their own mother? Follow, share, and subscribe to AfriTales Butasa TTL for more African stories that touch the soul, where every tear carries a lesson about gratitude, motherhood, and the true meaning of humanity. The rain over Makoko had fallen for 3 long days. Each drop slipped through the holes in the rusted tin roof, streaming down the wooden walls of the shanty. Inside, Mama Ngozi sat curled beside a small charcoal stove, her calloused hands blackened from years of smoke. The flickering flame cast a faint glow on her wrinkled face, still radiant with a quiet kind of love, a mother's love. Before her lay an old yellowed photograph, a young boy in a school uniform, smiling proudly, holding up a certificate. Chijioke, her only son, her only reason to keep living. Once her husband Obi used to dream that one day they would leave Makoko, open a small store, and give their boy a better life. But fate was cruel. A fever took him away, leaving her and the child in that leaking hut by the river. From that day on, Mama Ngozi became everything: mother, father, and shelter from the world. Every dawn she pushed her charcoal cart to the market, her bare feet sinking into the muddy paths, her shoulders weighed down with heavy sacks. Sweat and rainwater became one. And when night fell inside the dark hut, she would count every last coin and whisper with a tired smile, "This should cover tomorrow's school fees." Neighbors often said, "Ngozi, let the boy quit school. He's grown, let him help you." But she would shake her head, her voice gentle yet firm. "No. Education is the only way he'll ever escape this mud." And so year after year, she raised her son with tears and faith. There was never enough food, never enough rest, but love was never in short supply. She patched his worn-out uniform with pieces of her old wrapper, sold her wedding ring to pay tuition, and every night she hummed an old Yoruba lullaby, "Nuam, don't forget your roots. The tree that forgets its soil will thirst forever." Then one hot afternoon, the mailman arrived with a letter from the University of Lagos. Chijioke had earned a scholarship to study in England. She froze and then burst into tears. Tears that blurred her son's name on the paper. "Thank you, Lord. My son will finally touch the sky." But joy never comes without a price. The scholarship covered tuition, not travel, not housing. And no matter how much charcoal she sold, she could never afford the rest. Each night, she sat by the river, praying in silence. Then one misty morning, when the air was cool with dawn, she made her decision to sell their tiny home. The same home where her husband had taken his last breath. The same place where her son had taken his first steps. When the buyer handed her the money, her hands trembled, her heart tearing in two. That night, mother and son slept by the riverside, wrapped in an old scarf against the wind. She whispered softly, her voice trembling with the sound of the waves, Son, when you walk the streets of the big city, remember tonight. Remember this soil, this river, where your mother traded her whole life so you could fly. At sunrise, a small boat waited. Chijioke hugged her quickly, the brief embrace of youth, unaware it might be the last. I'll make you proud, Mama. I promise. She smiled, eyes glistening with tears, yet full of light. Go, my child. Fly high, but never forget who gave you your wings. The boat drifted away, his figure fading into the mist. She stood waving until her arm ached, and when he was gone, she sank to the ground, empty, yet strangely warm inside. Years passed. The tides of Makoko rose and fell like the rhythm of breath. Mama Ngozi's hair turned white. Her back bent low, yet every month she walked to the village post office, waiting for the letters that smelled of distant rain from England. Inside each envelope were careful words, Mama, London is cold. I'm trying my best. One day I'll build you a beautiful house. Those words alone were enough. When her back hurt, she smiled. It's fine. My son studies among the white men now. When neighbors mocked her frailty, she replied, He'll come home soon. Every night she sat by her lamp, hands clasped, whispering, Dear Lord, keep my son's heart soft, so he never forgets the woman who gave him life. But she didn't know far away her son was learning how to survive in another world, one where success mattered more than gratitude and pride quietly replaced humility. Then one morning, a shout echoed through the marketplace, Ngozi, your son's on TV. He's rich now, the CEO of Zion Holdings in Lagos. The charcoal basket slipped from her hands. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Lord. My son has made it. That night, she lit her last candle, placed the old photo of her son beside it, and smiled at the trembling flame. Outside, the rain began to fall again, gentle, warm, like a mother's blessing. She believed that rain carried good fortune, but she didn't know. That same rain would soon mark the beginning of her deepest sorrow. 7 years after that farewell on the banks of Makoko, Lagos had changed. The city was no longer a swamp of wooden boats and muddy waters. It had become a forest of glass and steel where neon lights burned through the night. Along the Lekki Phase 1 expressway, luxury cars lined the road, their tinted windows reflecting electronic billboards, symbols of a new generation, where money replaced memory and fame buried gratitude. Inside a gleaming black Range Rover, Chijioke, the boy who once studied by the glow of a kerosene lamp, now wore an Italian suit and a gold watch that caught every flicker of light. The driver said nothing as Chijioke spoke sharply into his phone. Yes, this is the CEO of Zion Holdings. Confirm the Dubai deal, and make sure no mistakes are allowed. His voice was cold, decisive, the tone of a man who had learned to command. He had forgotten the smell of charcoal, the sound of rain on tin, the image of a gray-haired mother counting coins under a dim light. When he returned to Nigeria for the first time in years, reporters swarmed him at Murtala Mohammed Airport. They called him Lagos's youngest self-made CEO, the face of a new generation. No one knew that a woman had once sold charcoal so he could chase his dreams, because Chijioke had told the world a different story, that he was an orphan who had risen from the dirt all by himself. The crowd admired him, but those words cut deep into the heart of a mother still waiting by the river. After the press conference, he was invited to a private gala hosted by Chief Okoro, one of Lagos's wealthiest real estate tycoons. There he met Adana, the chief's elegant daughter, educated in London, her accent crisp and her smile disarming. Chijioke spoke of a tough childhood, but carefully erased one detail, the woman who gave him life. To Adana, he was perfect, intelligent, self-made, and tragically orphaned. Her sympathy soon turned into love. Within a year, they married in a lavish ceremony at St. James Church, attended by Lagos's most powerful families. While fireworks lit the city sky far away in the slums of Makoko, Mama Ngozi read about the wedding in an old newspaper. She traced her fingers over the photograph, her son, in a white suit, smiling beside his beautiful bride. "My son is happy now," she whispered, her voice trembling with lonely joy. She still believed he would come back someday, take her to the city, and show her the life she'd dreamed of. Whenever travelers returned from Lagos, she would ask, "Did you see my Chijioke?" But every answer was the same hesitant shakes of the head. Meanwhile, in his marble mansion, Chijioke lived a new life. He learned how to eat with silver cutlery, discuss stocks and Dubai investments, and toast to power under chandeliers. When asked about his past, he simply smiled. "There's not much to tell. I built myself from nothing." Adana believed every word. Chief Okoro admired him even more, trusting him with major deals and expanding Zion holdings across borders. The more successful Chijioke became, the more terrified he was of his past being uncovered. He blocked every call from unfamiliar numbers. When an old neighbor from Makoko called to say, "Your mother is sick," his secretary replied, "I'm sorry, the director doesn't take personal calls." He heard the message and stayed silent. For a brief second, guilt stirred in his chest. But then Adana's voice echoed in his mind. "You need to focus on the future. Don't let the past drag you down." So he kept walking further and further away. Months later, an invitation arrived, his son's birthday party. The Zion Holdings prince, as the tabloids called the child. The mansion glittered with light. Politicians, business magnates, and celebrities filled the hall. Chijioke looked around, champagne in hand, admiring the reflection of crystal lights in the marble floor. From mud to marble, he whispered, "I've won." But far away in a small riverside hut, Mama Ngozi was preparing for that same day, not with gold or gifts, but with love. She spent the night baking a small cassava cake, wrapping it carefully in a white cloth. On it she scrawled in shaky handwriting, "Happy birthday to my grandson, from Grandma Ngozi." She tied her scarf, her heart trembling with hope. Then she boarded an old bus, heading to Lagos. That night, the rain returned, just like years ago. The windows rattled, the wind howled, but her heart felt warm. Tonight, she whispered, "I will see my son again, and hold my grandson for the first time." On the highway into Lekki, skyscrapers glowed through the storm. No one in that dazzling city knew that somewhere among the headlights and glass towers, a mother was carrying her entire heart in her hands, just to hear her son call her mama once more. And inside the grand mansion, Chijioke had no idea that the real storm of his life was already on its way. The morning rain had stopped. Lagos glimmered beneath a freshly washed sky, bathed in gold from the rising sun. In the luxurious mansions of Lekki Phase 1, maids hurried back and forth, hanging balloons, lighting candles, and spreading white tablecloths along the poolside tables. From the large speakers came soft jazz, blending with the laughter of privileged children. It was Daniel's 5th birthday, the beloved son of Chijioke and Adana, and the day when heaven and hell would meet in the same breath. The iron gates swung open. Luxury cars rolled in one after another. Business magnates, politicians, and the media were all present. In the flower-filled garden, Adana stood radiant in a pale gold gown, a rose in full bloom under the sun. Beside her, Chijioke, in a sleek gray suit, held a glass of wine, smiling to guests with the polished ease of a man who had everything, except peace. No one knew that across the city, in a rattling old bus, Mama Ngozi sat clutching a small bundle in her arms. Inside was a birthday cake she had baked herself, simple, but lovingly made, wrapped in white cloth and tied with a blue ribbon. Her eyes sparkled as she gazed out the window. Dear Lord, 7 years have passed. Today I will see my grandson. When the bus stopped before the mansion gates, she stepped down, straightened her headscarf, and wiped the dust from her worn sandals. She paused for a moment, staring at the long line of luxury cars, the laughter and the bright music spilling from inside. But instead of fear, she smiled. My son has truly made it. The security guard eyed her suspiciously. Who are you looking for? I'm Chijioke's mother, she said softly. I just came to wish my grandson a happy birthday. The guard hesitated, then, moved by the quiet determination in her wrinkled eyes, reluctantly opened the gate. Mama Ngozi walked into a world of lights and perfume. Music, laughter, the scent of champagne, it was dazzling. She stepped carefully, clutching the cake close to her chest. When she reached the center of the hall, the crowd turned. Dozens of curious, judgmental eyes sliced through her faded clothes like blades. Adana frowned. Who let this woman in? Before anyone could respond, a cold, familiar voice rang out, Mother. She turned. Chijioke stood on the staircase, eyes wide, face frozen. She smiled, tears rising. Chijioke, my son. I came to wish your boy a happy birthday. I brought a cake. She unwrapped the white cloth, revealing the small, homemade cake with shaky icing that read, Happy birthday, Daniel, from Grandma. The room went silent. Whispers rippled through the guests. Did she say she's his mother? Adana looked at her husband, confused. Your mother? All eyes turned to him, the young CEO who once told the world he was an orphan. Sweat gathered at his temples. His voice broke. No, she's mistaken. I don't know her. Mama Ngozi froze. Her eyes went hollow. What are you saying, Chijioke? It's me, your mother. Enough, he shouted, his voice echoing through the marble hall. How many times have I told you not to come here? You're embarrassing me. The murmurs grew louder. Adana stepped back, her face pale. Mama Ngozi reached out, trembling. I just wanted to hold my grandson once. That's all. He slapped her hand away. The cake fell splattering across the white marble floor, cream staining his polished shoes. Then, smack. The slap cracked through the air like thunder beneath the chandelier. She stood still, hand on her cheek, staring at her son in disbelief. A single tear rolled down, mixing with her faint, broken smile. You've truly forgotten your mother. The guards dragged her toward the exit. Her headscarf fell, silver hair tumbling loose in the wind. She turned one last time, eyes fixed on the little boy in Adana's arms, her grandson watching her with innocent curiosity. God bless you, Daniel, she whispered before the gate slammed shut behind her. Inside, the music started again. Laughter returned as if nothing had happened. But inside Chijioke's heart, a tiny crack had opened, small yet deep enough to reach his soul. Later that night, Adana approached him, her voice icy. Who was that woman really, Chijioke? You said you were an orphan. You lied to me. You lied to my father. Her fury was like a storm. Guests left early, and by dawn, the headlines were everywhere. Zion Holdings' CEO caught lying about his mother. Within hours, his glittering world began to crumble. But he didn't yet know that somewhere outside, beneath the same rain now returning to Lagos, a mother he had cast out was walking home alone, soaked to the bone, still clutching the broken pieces of her cake, as if letting go of them would mean letting go of the only reason she had left to live. The rain fell again over Lagos. Each drop sounded like a sob from heaven, not just rain, but a mother's tears and the silent judgment of fate itself. Night fell over Lagos like a heavy velvet curtain. Inside the mansion in Lekki, the music had gone silent. Only the faint hum of the air conditioner remained mixed with the lingering scent of wine and birthday cake on the marble floor. Adana stood by the glass window, her back straight as a blade, her eyes dry but filled with storm. Chijioke sat on the couch, wrist covering half his face, a smear of white frosting on his polished shoe, a stain that felt like a verdict. Who was that woman? Adana's voice was calm, low, the kind of calm that comes before destruction. He said nothing. You told all of Lagos you were an orphan, she continued, and yet she called you her son. You slapped her in front of our child, in front of me, in front of everyone. A silence that lasted a lifetime. Then his voice small and dry. She's my mother. No tears followed. Only the sharp stillness of truth. Adana turned away, unlocked her phone. On the glowing screen, a video was already spreading. Young CEO slaps elderly woman at son's birthday. Under the crystal chandelier, the sound of that slap replayed again and again like a church bell tolling for his soul. You didn't just lie, she said, eyes fixed on the screen. You denied your own blood. A man who forgets his mother tomorrow, he'll forget his wife. Her phone buzzed. Chief Okoro was calling, "Come home. Now." By the time they reached the Okoro estate, clouds had covered the sky. The grand living room, lined with polished walnut, gleamed but gave no warmth. Chief sat at the head chair, his white caftan crisp, his face carved from granite. On the table lay a stack of printed news headlines, the ink still wet. You used my family's name, Chief began slowly to climb. I treated you like a son, and you repaid me with a perfect lie. Father, Chijioke began. I am not your father, the old man interrupted. Your father is gone, but your mother stood at your gate, and you pushed her into the mud. Adana sat silently, hands clasped tight. Her anger was gone, replaced by an ocean of disappointment. Chief slid a file across the table. All contracts between Okoro Group and Zion Holdings suspended indefinitely. The guarantees revoked by morning. From this moment, we are no longer connected. The pen scratched across the paper, a thin black line sealing years of power and ambition. The door to privilege closed quietly, but the floor inside Chijioke's heart gave way. He returned to the office near midnight. The glass tower of Zion Holdings still glowed, but its light felt fragile, trembling. Uzo, the operations director, rushed in. Have you seen the news? The bank wants collateral. The Singapore investors canceled. PR says the video's unstoppable. Tell them to issue a statement, Chijioke snapped. That woman is a stranger. Don't Uzo cut him off. Another lie now would finish you. The conference room screen flickered alive, social media comments poured like a sandstorm, ungrateful son. How dare he no contract with a man who slaps his mother? The logos of partner companies faded one by one like stars vanishing from a polluted sky. Uzo's voice softened, find her. Apologize. Publicly. If there's even a sliver of redemption left, that's it. Chijioke looked down at his hands. The same hands that had signed million-dollar deals now trembled. He remembered another pair of hands, rough, blackened by charcoal, shielding him from rain when he was a boy. The image flickered and died. The next morning, the gates of Zion Holdings were swarmed by reporters. A news anchor in a dark suit spoke clearly. The truth about Lagos's young CEO, not an orphan. His mother, Mrs. Ngozi, sold charcoal in Makoko for years to raise him. Beside her flashed an old photo, a smiling boy in a school uniform beside a woman in a headscarf, both standing before a wooden shack. The photo came from an anonymous account later revealed to be old Ize, the neighbor who had kept it like a sacred ember of memory. The phone buzzed again. A message from Adana. I need time. Don't contact me. Then a call from Daniel's school. We're sorry, sir. Please send someone else to pick him up. There are too many reporters. A dull knife broke inside his chest. Even his son now hid in the shadow of his shame. By noon, the emergency board meeting began. Paper rustled. Voices cut sharp. Liquidity is collapsing. Zion's credibility is gone. Reputation is an asset, and ours is bankrupt. Someone murmured, a man who rejects his mother isn't just immoral, he's a risk. Because a man who can deny his own blood can deny any contract. Uzo turned to him one last time. Go find her, Chijioke. Please. By dusk, Chijioke drove himself toward Makoko. The roads were slick, the sky gray. He stopped by the old wooden pier, the same one where his mother once held his hand through the mud. A little girl selling candy pointed. Mama Ngozi, her house is down there, the one with all the holes in the roof. The door creaked open. Inside, a bamboo bed, a peeling photo on the wall, an empty oil lamp. Old Eze sat in the corner, his eyes dim but knowing. You're Chijioke, he said, not a question. Where is she? She came home last night. He sighed. Said she just wanted to see her grandson, then rest. The rain caught her. She's been feverish. They took her to the clinic across the canal this morning. Chijioke ran. The black canal shimmered under gray light. He leapt onto a small boat, gripping its edge as the wind lashed his face salt cold in memory. Every meter of water he crossed felt like a year of regret. The clinic appeared rusted tin roof peeling paint. The hallway reeked of disinfectant. A nurse glanced up, recognizing the face from the news. She didn't bow. She simply pointed. Bed number 7. She lay there, fragile as a dry leaf, breathing shallowly. On her chest, a scrap of white cloth still held traces of dried icing, the last remains of that broken cake. His knees gave out. Mama, he whispered, for the first time in years, I was wrong. Her eyes fluttered open. In their faded depths, he saw the sky and the river he'd once left behind. She smiled a small, peaceful smile. My son, she breathed, did the rain make you wet? His tears fell onto her weathered hand, mingling with the marks of old rain, 2 rivers finally meeting after a long drought. The door opened. Uzo appeared breathless. The press found out you're here. But I'll handle it. Stay with her. He stood guard at the door, a late sentry protecting the last piece of truth. Chijioke held her hand, wishing he could bargain away the storms of media, the broken contracts, the hollow trophies, all for one more hour of her breath. But time, like every debt, never negotiates. Evening settled over Makoko. The church bells tolled softly. Birds perched along the sagging power lines, utterly still. By bed number 7, a son finally spoke the truth. My name is Chijioke, son of Mama Ngozi, the woman who sold charcoal so I could rise. I denied my roots to build a kingdom of lies. I return it all now. If only my mother will forgive me. She nodded faintly, forgiveness without words. Don't return anything to me, she whispered. Return it to the village, where we began. Outside, the sun dipped behind rusted rooftops, leaving a thin streak of gold across the sky. The truth had come to light, and with it a final chance for redemption. The contracts, the bankers, the headlines all waited beyond the clinic door. But before his mother's fragile hand, they were nothing but dust. And deep within the heart of Lagos, a new promise was born. When the storm passes, there will be a school, a clinic, a small bridge across the Black Canal bearing the name Ngozi. So no child born in Makoko will have to choose between mud and oblivion. And no mother will ever again be pushed away while holding a birthday cake made of love. By noon the next day, rain swept across Lagos like a long indictment. Water crawled down the glass facade of Zion Holdings, blurring the gold letters that once shone like an oath. Inside the boardroom, the ceiling lights were cold. Faces looked brittle like paper. Uzo spoke softly, but every word hit the glass table with a thud. The bank has withdrawn its guarantees. The Dubai fund has ended talks. The Singapore partner says, "We don't do business with a man who rejects his roots." To Chijioke, the scratch of signatures sounded like rain stabbing a tin roof. On the ticker, the line plunged like a kite with a cut string. An older director slowly removed his glasses. Money can take risk. Honor can't. No one met his eyes. They were afraid of seeing themselves in that collapsing gaze. By afternoon, he drove back to the Lekki mansion. The gate slid open to a silence so deep he could hear the tires glide through puddles. Adana had packed almost everything. On the table lay a single handwritten note. "I'm taking Daniel to my father's. When you can tell the truth to the whole world, then we'll talk." He stood there, hands shaking. In the nursery, the birthday banner still hung. The balloons had gone limp. A strand of tinsel snagged on the ceiling fan like a torn memory. He tugged the strand. The glitter fell, flashed, and went out. That night, the lawyer called voice rough, "The court has received the divorce filing." The press picked it up immediately. "Since the deed is in the company's name, the house will be seized." When the call ended, the home felt too wide, so empty that even his breathing echoed. He walked the crystal corridor he'd once been proud of, touched the expensive objects, suddenly light as hollow shells. At midnight, Uzo forwarded a screenshot from an international magazine, "When Success Forgets Its Mother." The piece wasn't angry. It simply recounted a woman in the rain holding a broken cake and a lie that swallowed the boy she raised. Only then did he understand the world wasn't angry because he was rich or poor. It was angry because he had cut the cord that ties people to one another. Morning brought pounding at the door, court officers, bank reps, the repossession team. The Range Rover was driven away. The elderly houseman quietly unscrewed the sign at the gate, "Zion Holdings, private residence." He stood under the eaves, rain striking his face. The letters on the plaque washed thin, exposing rough, dark wood, the grain of truth beneath the paint. With nothing left to keep him in Lagos, he returned to Makoko. The road into the settlement smelled of mud and trash, yet his steps felt lighter. Old Ize met him at the lane's mouth, his eyes kind as a fire newly stoked. "Her fever's eased, but she's weak." When she heard you were back, she kept looking toward the door. The clinic's roof was bleached tin. Mama Ngozi lay on her side, eyes half-closed, breath fine as thread. He sat and took her hand. "Mama, I'm here." She opened her eyes, a look from a very far shore. "My son, did the rain make you cold?" He broke down. "Cold, but I still have you." She smiled, a small smile that shattered like a sliver of sun. A few days later, the doctor urged a transfer to a larger hospital. In the ambulance, the city unspooled like a film, running backward from slum to boulevard, from corrugated tin to glass and steel. She tugged his hand lightly. "Don't waste money. I'm tired from longing, not from rain." He pressed his forehead to her calloused palm and prayed for a late miracle. But miracles don't hurry to those who've sold the sacred too cheaply. That night, in a room white as silence, the rain returned. The clock ticked evenly. By the bed, he told old stories, the leaky boat, the time she carried him through a storm, the bowl of porridge she cooled with her breath. She listened with eyes closed, the corners of her mouth lifting, as if watching her life on a screen. "It's enough that you remember," she whispered. "Now don't forget again." At dawn, a slit of clear sky appeared. She looked at him for a long time, a look that was both instruction and pardon. "If one day you're strong again, don't build a house for me. Build for the child at the end of the lane, for the next woman selling charcoal. Pay your debt by making sure no one has to stand outside a gate." Her breath thinned. All sound gathered into a single point of quiet. The clock kept moving, but time in that room stopped. "Mama," he called softly. No answer. Only the smell of rain and medicinal leaves. He knelt, held her narrow shoulders, and wept into the blanket. Outside the glass, one last drop slid down, leaving a clear thread that tied past to present, and then it snapped. News of her passing spread quickly through the settlement. The fish sellers came with purple scarves. Children stopped their games and lined up with candles. Old Eze set her wooden bracelet on the altar. No one spoke of the slap, no one mentioned the video. Makoko only knows how to share silence, the way a river shares its channels with the sea. The funeral was simple. By the water's edge, a few wildflowers, a rough wooden cross. Her name carved by a dull knife. Chijioke laid his hand on the mound, cold enough to pierce the heart. He wanted to say a million apologies, but the earth only drinks tears. "Mama, I have paid a price," he whispered, "but the price can't bring you back." After the burial, he walked the narrow wooden alleys past punctured roofs and broken beds. Thin faces looked up, not condemning, just waiting. In that moment, he understood the cost of a sin doesn't end with personal pain. It's a debt that must be repaid with action. He sold what remained of his assets, liquidated his shares in the tarnished name. Uzo quietly helped him gather the last funds. "You still have me and your promise." They raised a temporary tent, set a wooden table, and painted a hand-lettered sign. Ngozi Trust, one school, one clinic, one bridge. Night fell. He sat alone by the canal, the smell of mud and algae like an ancient grief. He opened his phone and recorded a short video voice, low and steady. "I'm Chijioke, son of Mama Ngozi. I lied. I slapped the woman who gave me life. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to make it right, not for me, but for Makoko." He posted it with no logo, no soundtrack, no PR, only rain and confession. The first reply came from an anonymous account. "Start with a bridge so the kids can reach school. They slip all rainy season." The second, "If you're serious, we'll bring timber." The third, "I'm a doctor. I'll come on weekends." He looked up. The clouds were parting. In the pale blue of morning, he saw his mother's face at the water's edge, not scolding, not smiling, just looking. As if to ask, "Will you go all the way?" "I will," he answered the wind, hand over the slow, steady beat of his heart. "And I won't stop just because it hurts." In Lekki, people debated the spectacular fall. In Makoko, a rope stretched between two rotting banks. The first pylons were hammered into the mud. The price of his sin translated into planks for a bridge, pills for a clinic, copybooks for a first grader. It was costly, but finally measurable. On the fresh mound of earth, a bouquet of wildflowers held a small tag for Mama Ngozi, the mother who taught a city the meaning of remember. Wind rose from the canal, carrying rain and the scent of blossoms. At the far edge of loss, Chijioke understood he had lost the most sacred thing, a price nothing can replace. But if pain can become a road, then every hammer strike on the bridge would be a step of his mother's hand leading him home. And when children's laughter rang across the mud, the next day he heard an old song rise from somewhere in his bones. Don't forget your roots. The tree that forgets its soil will thirst forever. The last rain of the season fell soft as silk. No applause. Only Makoko nodding gently, a quiet ritual of acceptance. The man who paid the price is now allowed to begin. The first morning after the funeral, a pale gray sky hung over Makoko. The smell of mud and charcoal smoke mingled with the morning mist, drifting lazily across the water. Chijioke sat in front of his mother's hut, eyes fixed on the dull canal where tiny ripples caught the faint light of dawn. In his hand was her wooden bracelet, rough, simple, yet warm, as if still carrying her touch. No more Lagos noise. No luxury cars, no ringing phones. Only the rhythmic splash of paddles and the clear laughter of children from the opposite shore. Each sound felt like a needle stitching back together the torn fabric of his soul. He lifted his eyes to an old photograph covered in soot. His mother smiling brightly, holding a basket of charcoal beside the little boy he once was. His voice trembled. If only I could go back for one day, just to call you Mama without shame. Memories rushed in like a rainstorm, the slap at the birthday party, the cake shattering on marble, his son's shocked face, every fragment slicing deeper, no painkiller strong enough to numb it. He had lost everything, his wife, his child, his fortune, his name, and most of all, the one person who had loved him without condition. Now there was only an empty wooden house and the ghosts of regret whispering through the night. That evening he went to the riverside where she once sold charcoal. The wind stirred, flickering the lantern by her grave. He knelt, voice shaking, Mama. I finally understand what it means to be poor, what it means to be rich, and what it means to lose everything. I thought success was standing above everyone else, but true success is being able to bow before your mother without shame. He fell silent, listening to the soft lap of waves against the pier. In the night breeze, he thought he heard her voice, faint as breath, my son. If you've seen your mistake, then I've already forgiven you. His tears dropped into the rainwater, each one a prayer, each one a thread of peace for her soul. Days passed, and Makoko began to change. Under his hands and the villagers' wooden posts were driven into the mud, forming a bridge they named Mama Ngozi Bridge. With every hammer strike, he felt he was sealing off a chapter of his past, opening a new path toward redemption. Now children walked safely to school. Poor mothers received care at a free clinic. People began calling him the son who returned. He neither denied nor glorified the name. He only smiled when asked, "Why do you do all this?" Because once he said, "I refused a hug I'll never get back." One afternoon, Adana arrived with Daniel, the boy he once kept from his grandmother's arms. The child held his mother's hand, eyes wide at the strange little village. When his gaze fell on the sign that read, Mama Ngozi Foundation, he whispered, "Who was my grandma daddy?" The question pierced straight through him. He knelt holding his son's hand, voice trembling. "She's the reason I'm here today. Remember her name, my son. She was the greatest woman I'll ever know." Daniel nodded solemnly. He walked to the small altar and placed a wildflower he'd picked by the river. Adana turned away, hiding the tear glistening at her eye. "You've changed, Chijioke," she said softly. "The man who once chased fame now kneels in the mud. I believe she's smiling." He didn't answer. He just looked up at the clearing sky where golden light washed over the canal like a gentle baptism. That night he stood on the newly built bridge, wine tugging at his shirt. Below, the waters of Makoko moved quietly. He whispered, "Mama, I've rebuilt everything, Not with money, but with the heart you left inside me. If you can hear me, please smile. A light breeze swept by. The lanterns along the bridge flickered, then glowed brighter. Their reflections spread across the water, forming the faint shape of a woman in a white headscarf. Soft, kind, and at peace. He smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. And as the season's last rain began to fall, each drop felt like forgiveness from the heavens. Makoko slept in peace. Through the sound of rain, a gentle song drifted, "Nwam, don't forget your roots. The tree that forgets its soil will thirst forever." The melody floated over the water into every home, every heart. And somewhere beyond, in the vast calm of eternity, Mama Ngozi smiled. Her son at last had found his way home. The sun rose slowly over Makoko, its pale gold light, gliding across the water and dancing on the rusted tin rooftops aged by time. The sound of paddles brushing the river echoed softly. The wind hummed through wooden walls, and children's laughter drifted from somewhere nearby. A new morning, and with it a new life had begun. Amid that quiet beauty, Chijioke stood on the bridge named after his mother, Mama Ngozi Bridge. Beneath him, the canal that had once been a muddy childhood playground now shimmered with dawn's reflection. Children ran across the bridge, school bags bouncing, calling out, "Thank you, Uncle Chijioke. We don't have to wade through the water to get to school anymore." He smiled, a soft smile, light as a prayer. No suits, no gold watches, just a man in a simple cotton shirt wearing his mother's old wooden bracelet around his neck. To him, it was the only treasure worth keeping from a life built on mistakes. Under the sign Mama Ngozi Foundation, the place buzzed with life. Volunteer doctors offered free medical care to the poor. Charcoal-selling mothers received medicine, and children queued for books, their laughter blending with the aroma of hot rice from the community kitchen. To them, Chijioke wasn't a fallen businessman. He was the son who came home from the dark. At noon, he sat in a small room overlooking the river, writing in a leather notebook. If a man who once denied his own mother can be forgiven, then anyone can begin again. No one is born perfect, but everyone has a chance to make things right, as long as they still know how to bow their head. Outside the door, Adana entered holding Daniel's hand. The boy grinned and held up a crayon drawing a woman in a white headscarf, standing in the rain, shielding a child beneath her arm. "That's Grandma," he said proudly. "I've never met her, but I can feel her in my heart." Tears welled in Chijioke's eyes, not from sadness, but from the quiet joy of knowing his mother was alive again in the love he now shared. He hugged his son and looked toward Adana. She nodded gently. "She's forgiven you, Chijioke," she said softly. "Keep walking this path. It's the only way she'll keep smiling from above." By dusk, the sunlight turned the river gold. He stood before his mother's modest grave, laying a bouquet of wildflowers and a small paintbrush that Daniel had given him. "Mama, I've learned devotion isn't measured by what we give, but by how we live after you're gone. You taught me that a man who can bow his head will one day rise in the light." The wind stirred gentle as her old hand brushing his hair. In that moment, he felt something sacred. Forgiveness wasn't a word. It was an action beating quietly inside a heart that had found its way back. As twilight fell, Makoko glowed. The lights on the bridge reflected off the water like 1,000 candles in prayer. The Mama Ngozi Foundation held its first anniversary celebration, a completed school, a new clinic, and hundreds gathered to give thanks. Amid songs and drums, Chijioke stepped onto the small stage, his voice calm and firm. "Once I thought losing everything was the worst that could happen. But now I know the worst thing is losing the heart that knows how to love. If your mother is still alive, hold her tight today. If she's gone live in a way that makes her proud, because filial love never dies. Only those who forget it do. The crowd fell silent. Then a single pair of hands began to clap, then another and another, until the applause rolled through the air, merging with the soft sound of falling rain. It wasn't the sorrowful rain of years past, but the rain of blessing. The last light of sunset broke through the drizzle, painting a faint rainbow across the sky. Beneath the bridge, children shouted with laughter, holding hands as they ran through the rain. And somewhere between the drops and the songs, a woman's voice seemed to whisper, "My son, you've come home." Life can take everything from you, money, fame, position, but never let it take your gratitude. Cherish the one who gave you life, because as long as you can still say the words, "Mama," you still hold an entire world within you. Where are you watching this story from? Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, Cape Town, or somewhere else in the world? Comment your city below and share your thoughts after watching the story of Mama Ngozi, the African mother, who taught humanity the power of forgiveness. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe to AfriTales Bitay. For more African stories of tears and light, where every drop of rain carries a message of love and gratitude.